Obajo, wama tiktish na cause, megazado them, or soxing don't you ba, and the schnabe and dow, parawada me and dow. Chumi, watch me show miss, nakabi wa say, Aja yen non gum. Chumi, watch and dark it non gum, Ijagat, well, when a jamano, Ganawa mag, Nigi where, Jabamaris, meanwhile, when a jaganon young. Miguchka ishka kemekwe, Ogamija yang, Matsawin. Ogamija yang, me jum, Ogamija yang, nebe. Ogamija yang, wisayak. Meanwhile, Ogamija yang, nisawin. Sama Nabagdana, Wabanong, Jaonong, Nagabianong, meanwhile Giwednong. Naramushin Jamoshka Gabuyan, meanwhile. Jazong Leon. Kenagego Gamija Yang Osa Bamadza Win. We do Kushnong. Janamiyang Kwayak Jabamose Yang. Chamigwich Gijamanado. Gamija Yang gets anon. Migwich Gabanochi non. Wawena Jamaji Quad. Chamigwich Gubija. With a mug in the dog, P. I'll keep quiet, Chmigwich. And that prayer acknowledges everything here in creation that we have been given so freely to live a good life. And we have been given everything to live a good life here in creation. And that song, that prayer acknowledges all that. And as you can see, you know, in front of me is fire, you know, is one of those teachings that gives us life too. And I have my little bundle there. It's not my whole bundle, but it is a part of my bundle that keeps me centered. It helps me to stay focused on part of my purpose here. What is my purpose in life? And I feel part of it is doing what I'm doing today, is being out on the land and honoring creation. When we honor creation, we are honoring the life that we were given. And when we are honoring the life that we were given, we develop trust, we develop respect in creation. You know, there was a time in my life when I would be afraid to be out on the land like this by myself. But as I moved down my path in my life journey, I began to understand that this is what gives me life. All of this here gives me life. The cedar tree, Gishkandak, the birch tree, Wigwastik. I didn't realize, you know, that all these things when I was a young boy gave me life. My mother was a quill box maker, so we would have to go and pick the birch bark from the trees in June when it was time to pick. And I didn't realize at the time that this was giving us life, because this got food on the table for us. But I didn't realize that because I didn't have those teachings about what the land can give us and how the respect I would gain from it. Much like the cedar tree. You know, when my dad would boil the cedar, he'd go out and pick the cedar, and you know, and he could do that because you know, my mom had to look after us. A lot of times the women will do that, go and pick the cedar. But my dad would go out and he would pick that cedar and he would bring it back in for when any one of us were sick. And him in particularly, he would use it when he had a cold, or he was congested, or maybe just feeling down. You know, he would smudge with that cedar, or he'd drink the tea. He would make tea with it. And much like the birch tree, you know, there's many birch trees around here in this part of the forest. And when I think about the birch tree and what that gives me as a fire keeper, it gives me the medicine to help start those sacred fires, to help start those sweat lodges, those sweat lodge fires, those community fires. And the medicine from that birch bark, which is called gish kondak, is a medicine that is very sacred. You know, and that wigwas mtik gives us the medicine so freely. And we put our sama down when we need to go and find this. We put our sama down and we look and we ask for that medicine. And that birch tree gives us that medicine. You know, even these little saplings here, you'll see those little saplings in the back. You know, what we use from Sweat Lodge is the willow tree. And when we go to pick those willow trees for that Sweat Lodge, we talk to that willow tree. We talk to that tree and we say, we thank that tree for giving its life to us. Because that tree had in his seed thought, it had thoughts of growing up and being a big tall tree like this gishkandakntik. That's what those little saplings over there, that's what they have in their mind. That is in their creation. So they had those thoughts. And then we come along and we want to build a sweat lodge, or we want to use it for maybe other things that we use traditionally, and we take down its life. We take its life, and that's why we offer the tobacco. We offer the sama, and we talk to that tree, and we ask that tree to say, "Will you help me? We're going to build a sweat lodge. Will you help us take care of us, our life here?" And they have their teachings. They know that they came before us and that we would come after, asking them for help. We would be asking them to guide us. So they have their teachings. So when we go to take life from that tree, we put our sama down and remember that. Even when we go to the cedar, the women mostly, you know, you talk to that medicine, and you say, you tell the medicine what you want from it, and it will help you. It will help you. So at this time of the year, winter solstice, this is what we did. You know, we would reflect on what gave us life. What gives us life? And we would, you know, this is the time that the sun is the lowest in at this time of the year. You know, you notice all the snow here, and everything is quiet here. Even the animals, there's no animals running around. Everybody is settling down. They're taking their time because they know their teachings. They know that time is coming, and they've already prepared. They've prepared for this time, where they've gotten their food. You know, they're nestled in their little homes. You know, and they're there. They're there. They're quiet, and most likely they're getting teachings from their elders. You know, so because we're all related, we're all interrelated. You know, when we think about how creation survives here, we have to remember we were the last ones here. So when we go out and we sit on the land, much like I'm doing today, this is what it reminds me of. And I want to share a little song before I share more of what I understand. And this song, it talks about being grateful for all of this, for all of creation, being grateful for Shkagmakwe and what she gives us, being grateful to Gajay Manado, the Great Spirit, that they give us life. And if not for them, there would be no life. So we always have to acknowledge them for giving us that life. And that's what this song's about. And that song, as I said, you know, we love you. You know, we love you so much for giving us this life here. And as you can see, I also have my little bundle down there, my medicine wheel bundle, and part of our teachings talk about that, those medicine wheel teachings, and or those 4 direction teachings. Like that song I sang, I honored each direction, you know, for what they give us in life. You know, the east direction, it talks about the renewal. You know, each day we get up and we honor the sun. And at this time too, you know, when that sun is at its lowest, we really think about that time. We think about, you know, that the sun has to rest too. you know, and so with everything else it rests, and that's an indicator to creation. You know, we used to follow those ways, very what do you call it, that was like second nature. We would follow this time of year because we believed in that way, and that's what kept us in harmony and in balance with creation. You know, and in the south, you know, we talked about that Megazah who sits in that doorway. Well, also in the east, that robin sits, that Piche sits in that eastern doorway, and it talks about, well, what do the robins bring in the springtime? That Piche, they have their young, you know. So that was a reminder to us, you know, that when the robins came back, you know, after a hard winter, it was renewal. It was nice to see the robins. We honored them when they came back because new life was coming, and we knew that about ourselves. And that's what we did at this time too. We reflected on the past, but we also knew that there would be a new, you know, springtime would be coming again. So different things in life would be happening. So when we think about that that south direction, you know, where that Megazah sits, you know, and it sits there very proudly because it's one of our helpers. You know, Megazah can fly the highest and can take those prayers and it can take those thoughts to Creator whenever we're, even when we're feeling good about things, to honor Megazah, because Megazah is the one who petitioned for us when at that time when we were out of balance with creation here. Creator thought he didn't want to see his children this way, so he was going to start things over. I don't know how he was going to do it, but he didn't want to see creation in that much pain. And it was Megazah who said, no, I still believe they're following their ways, and give me 4 days to go out and see if anybody's still doing this, if anybody's still honoring what you had first instructed them. So Megazah went out, and he went out to those on those 4 days. He went to all those directions. He went to the east, he went to the south, he went to the west, and he went to the north, and on that fourth day he circled around, and he could see, just like here, he could see that little bellow of smoke coming up. And when he got closer and closer and closer, as he lowered, he could see a man and his family doing what I'm doing here today, honoring creation, honoring what we've been given, and respecting things in creation, because that's how we got off our track back in the day. Was we forgot about, you know, respecting creation and what gives us life. You know, we started thinking with just the mind, because, you know, when they talk about holism, we have to think about mind, body, spirit, and emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. We have to think about all those components, not just think about the spiritual. It's nice, it's beautiful, but without those other components, we're out of balance. We become out of balance. Much like this medicine wheel again, you know, those are 4 races of man. You know, the black, the white, the yellow, the red. Without one of those colors, creation would be incomplete. And so that's why we think about, you know, when we think about other races other than ourselves, we have to be kind. We have to be inviting. You know, and sometimes that's a challenge for us because of how we've been treated over a course of our history. But we have to remember our teachings, you know, to come from that kindness, and to share and to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. That you got your story wrong, and share a little bit of this and how creation sustains us, you know, and how we all have to be a part of. We're all interconnected, and that 4 direction story tells us about that. you know, and that's that teaching from the south with the Megazeh, and from the west, you know, that's the doorway of the ancestors, you know, who sit there, and at any time we can call on them. We can call on them to help us. You know, they're there, you know, in our dreams. They usually come in our dreams, and when we have those dreams, you know, and those dreams are about us. They're not about anybody else. Maybe they are about something that happened to us, somebody that did something to us, or even in a good way. It's about us when we think about those dreams. And in that doorway, you know, that doorway, that's when we put out our feast plates. We look to the west, you know, and we ask for that support. And that also is the doorway of the Mushkeke, the big, that's where the west in the sage sits in that doorway, but also the buffalo. You know, the buffalo sits in that doorway too. The story with that is that, you know, at one time, much like when I shared about Megazeh and the turbulent times here, the buffalo stood in that doorway, and there was a time we could just barely see the three legs of the buffalo. We could see it just standing on one leg. But what we're doing today, and how we're getting back to this way of being, we can see the legs starting to appear again. We can see the buffalo's legs starting to, you know, we're all standing on our four legs, and that means for us as a people, we're getting stronger. We are getting better. But it doesn't just happen. You know, we have to keep doing the work. We have to try to stay in balance. We have to try to take care of all those components, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional. Try to take care of those. And that feather teaching talks about that. You know, going back to the Megazeh, and what Megazeh gave us was, in that teaching with the feather, you know, you see down the middle of the feather, it talks about how, you know, we're asked to try and walk that road as straight as possible. And we can never walk that road as straight as that, but we can try. And when you see the sides of the feather, when we fall off that road, we can get back on the road by the supports we put in our life, by reaching out to our aunties, our uncles, you know, to those elders, to those mentors. Reach out, because they're the ones that are older than us. They've gone ahead. They've experienced life. So reach out to them, and they'll help us back onto that road when we talk about that feather teaching. So, you know, and in the north, in that north direction, that medicine wheel, that bear, and that's the Gishkan duck, that cedar tree. That's the one that sits in the north, and it's also the polar bear. They talk about how the polar bear sits in that direction too. You know, it will take those bad thoughts. It'll take those you know, some of those things they'll experience. It'll take it to the far north and bury it. You know, when you ask for that help. But again, that's just the spiritual side. We can lean on the spiritual side, but we have to put all those other elements as we're doing that. And that works. That spirit bear will take those prayers. And you know, even in our teachings, the bear it will protect us. You know, when you see a bear and how it protects its young ones, that's what that bear will do for us. But we have to believe that, and we have to try and follow a way of life that was meant for us. This is not a religion. This is a way of life. You know, being out on the land here, like I am today, it's beautiful out here. I see some trees are marked here, and it looks like they're probably going to take those trees down. You know, and they're not all cedar trees, and I know there's lots of what do you call it, bugs now, unfortunately, that are attacking our our creation, you know, and of course that's not the trees doing. That's from us, and how we've disrespected creation, you know. So there's many things we can do to stay balanced, to be in sync with creation. And this is a very simple process, you know. And here I am, I'm out on the land. My fire's almost going out, but that's okay, you know. I have to make sure it's out anyway when I leave. But I'm here, I'm sitting with creation. And I bought my bird seed, but I haven't seen any birds, because, and I'll share a picture of you with that when I go for my walks. I can feed the birds. They come and see me, because I'm Eagle Clan. Like I said in the beginning, Wamatik. I should have explained that. My name is Leaning Tree, and I come from Wasauksing First Nation, and I'm also of the Eagle Clan. So when I have that feed in my hand and I put it out, those birds land on my hand, and you can feel their little wee feet on your hands, and that is such a good feeling, you know, that they very lightly land on your hands, and they'll pick the food out, they'll fly away, and they'll come back, and then somebody it must be like the moccasin telegraph, because the next thing you know, everybody's there, and they like sunflower seeds, you know. They pick the seeds out, but some of them will pick the other seeds too. But you know, and so, you know, I feel that's my connection with creation, you know. So, but being on the land, you know, and reflecting, you know, as I was a young boy, like I said, growing up in my home, it was a little bit turbulent sometimes. But this is what I do, you know. I'd go out in the land, I'd walk around, and I'd find a little place, you know, maybe like that over there between those two trees, where it was kind of a little bit of a gully, and I would lay down, and it was all protected, much like here. You see, I'm all protected by the trees, and I would just lay there, and I would let the snow fall on me, and that was the safest. That was probably when I went back to Creator. You know, when we talk about that creation story, when we sit with Creator and we all felt safe at that particular time, that was the safest we ever felt, is when we sat with Creator and we talked about this life here. We talked about coming here and living this life, you know, and we talked about that purpose. Well, that time for me, when I was that young boy, that's how I felt. I felt really safe, because again, you know, things at home weren't the best, but I didn't realize it. But that little gully was probably Creator, you know, just kind of just wrapped in her arms and saying, it's going to be okay, Wamatik. And after that, I would be okay, you know, like emotionally and mentally, I you know, and physically. But you know, when I got back home, you know, I wish I would have shared that with my mom, to say this is how I felt. But we didn't do a lot of that, but that was okay, you know, because I know my mother, you know, loved me. I know she did the best she could, you know, and my father loved me, and he did the best he could. But you know, I think if they would have kept their ways and followed these ways to the best of their ability, we would have had a better life. Right? But that's what we're trying to do today. We're trying to get back to that old way of thinking, and we're trying to get connected back to creation, because back in the day, they did this on a regular basis. Like every year, they sat with the elders, and the elders would tell them stories. You know, they would talk about, you know, how Nanabush walked around creation when he was first lowered here, and he named everything. He named all the plants, the animals, he even lifted the rocks and everything under there. He named everything when Nanabush walked this creation, and Maingan walked with him, the wolf, because when Nanabush was doing this, he talked to Creator, and he said, I feel lonely, you know, and because, you know, he came here by himself. He is lowered here by himself in our creation story. And so that's when Creator Gajay Manado sent Mayangan to be his friend. You know, maybe that term, dog's best friend, because he is part of the dogs are part of the wolf family, or I believe that's how it goes. And they walked all over creation, and he named everything in creation, Wanabojo. But Creator also told him when Mayangan came, he said, there'll come a time, he said, when you will have to separate. You will have to go your separate ways. Wanabojo will go his way, Mayangan will go his way. And at that time, he said, yous will both be feared too when yous walk your journey. You know, but what Creator said was, he said, don't focus on the fear. Trust that everything is going to be all right. You know, and so when we think about a wolf, and when wolves are very far in the forest, you know, as long as we let them be who they are, they'll be who they are. You know, and for us, like he said, like, we'll both be feared, and that's because we have to take care of ourselves. You know, we have to be grounded in who we are, so that some of our emotions don't become, you know, to the point of not feeling good about ourselves, and maybe lashing out at somebody else, because, you know, as men, we do have that power. You know, we are a little stronger than, you know, some of the women, and so, but that was part of that story when Nanabush walked the earth here. And there's many stories about Nanabush. In the Mashomas book, you know, it talks about how Nanabush fought with his father when he went searching for his father, and how that flint came about, that flint and fire came about, and that's part of the fire teaching. You know, there's many teachings about Nanabush, and how he searched for his grandmother, you know, and how he found a log, and he got on the log, and he tried to float across, because one of the animals told him his grandmother was on the other side of the river. So he looked way over there, and he could see that was a long way. But because we're very intelligent people, Wanabojo knew that. I can get across there. He just wasn't too sure how. So he got on the log, and he floated, and he knew that wasn't working. And then, so he watched. He sat down again, and he watched the animals, because that's what we do. We come out and we sit with creation, and what are the animals going to teach us? And that's what Wanabojo did. He sat down. He was exhausted, and when he was sitting there, he seen a beaver cutting down a tree, Amik. And then he'd seen a piece of and he seen how the beaver could cut that tree. So he found probably a piece of flint, and he put a handle on it, and that's how he chopped out he dug out the canoe. And so he put that in the water, and he was so happy that he was going to make it across to see his grandmother. But when he got out there, he realized he wasn't going anywhere. Came back again. He sat again. He watched the beaver again, and he seen how the beaver had his tail. It was very wide, and that's what moved him around. So he went into the forest, and he found a tree, and he made a paddle. And then he started going. And then as he was going, he was paddling. They don't know how long he was paddling, but he started realizing he was coming back to the same place. He came back to the same place. So he sat down again, and he watched the animals again. And he watched how they would go in each direction. And because of his teachings, he remembered, he said, well, the geese fly south, or they fly north at different times. In the north, in the spring times, they go north, and in the fall time, they go south. So he remembered that teaching, and it said his grandmother sat in the east. So he knew if he went that way, if he followed the sun, that was the eastern direction. So he went that way. He followed that direction. So those little stories, those are the type of stories that were shared, you know, when we would We would sit in the winter time, and we'd have all our wood. All our wood would be cut. We would have all our food. Our meat would be stored in a way that nothing could get at it. A lot of it was dried. Probably moose and deer and maybe the little animals like rabbits or partridges. Those things like that. And then all the other things were, there was other things made, and not so much vegetables, because when you think of the deer and the moose, they're vegetarians. So if you eat moose and deer meat and you wonder why you have to go to the washroom, it's because of that's all they eat. They eat the vegetation. So when we eat the weos, the meat, well, so I don't know how much vegetation they kept, but they had some. Of course, we had rice. We had rice that they had packed away, but they prepared for all of this. And it's like me coming out here today. I'm dressed warm. I have my bundle here, my little bundle. I have my hat, and I have everything, because I thought about this. I thought you can't just come into the bush and not be prepared. And I have to know where I'm going. So I came in, and it's very simple here because the road, you can probably hear the cars, but it's very simple to get lost in the bush, and you have to know where you're going. But these are all the things that were shared, when we sat with Creator, or we sat with our people back in those days, with the winter solstice. But there's not too much snow now because the snow did come, and creation is probably a little, it's taken a little bit of time, but the snow will be here, and and that's what reminded the people too, that once that first winter part of winter came, they should have been prepared, and that's what they did. So that's a little bit of what I know about winter solstice. And I see my fire has gone out, and that's pretty good because it stayed going until, and this was a little bit I wanted to share. But I want to close with a song too. I started with a song, and then I want to, close with a song because our songs are like prayers too, and Creator loves song. Creator loves song. So I'm going to share a song, and this song here, I think I'd like to share the mother and father song. I shared about how my mother and father, the memories I had of them, that they gave me life, and I wanted to honor them. And much like here, we're talking about Father Sky and Mother Earth, and honoring them. So with that, I brought a warmer hat, so I better put that on because it's the temperature must be dropping, but that's okay. I won't be out here much longer, but I'm going to share that song now. And I hope everybody, when you think about these teachings, to as Zagaske says, he's go back in time, go back into that, think about those things, and put yourself in our place, our ancestors' place, and think about how they stayed well, and how they sat with their aunties and uncles and the elders at that time, and all these stories were shared. Think about that time, and I would like to share this song now. Actually, I will share the honor song, the Eagle song. Megazagiwamaya, Megazagiwama, Giwama, Giwama, Megazagiwama, ya, ya, ha. Weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, 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 ya. Megazaginonwa, ya, Megazaginonwa, Ginonwa, Ginonwa, Megazaginonwa, ya, ya, ha. Weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, 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 ya. Megazagitquena, ya, Megazagitquena, Gitquena, Gitquena, Megazagitquena, ya, ya, ha. Weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, 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 ya. Weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, weya, hey, ya, weya, hey, 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 ya. Ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, 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 ya. Oh, Kanagana. And that song there was taught to me by my good friend Dan Garcia, who in turn was taught to him by the Honorable H. Nanabush from our elder here at for our board. And so I want to say Dnaagdawenmag for coming and sitting and being with me out in creation in this beautiful, beautiful part of the world, you know, our Turtle Island. You can see, maybe you can see the lake over there a little bit, but you know, it's beautiful. I like coming here, and I'm not too sure whose land it is. I haven't been asked to, nobody has bothered me here, but I come here and I get my drumsticks, I get my shkatagan for fire starting, I get my wigwas for fire starting, and I get my my gishkan duck for the cedar tea. Even there's maple here. There's striped maple, which the moose, you know, the moose eat for their well-being. You know, that striped maple tea is good for ailments, because part of that teaching is that, you know, you see the moose eat that. And that's why I say, you know, when we sat and reflected, we even talked about these things and how we would look at creation, we would look at the animals, and they were the teachers. They were our teachers. So getting back to creation, you know, all these things remind me of how these things taught us back in the day. And we still have it. We still have it, but we have to nurture it. We have to keep this alive, and that's how we all contribute to being well here in creation. Dnaagdawenmag.